All right, so this video is about the nodes shifting into Aries and Libra. So we are dealing with concepts of self and we are dealing with concepts of, right, others and partnerships. So what I want us to do first is if you like my content, please make sure you also follow me on Amethyst Virgo on Instagram and also Amethyst Virgo Astrology on TikTok. Sometimes I'll post different things on there that I don't post here. Now, to dive into this, so first of all, we have to go back. I have a video, I will try to put it in the cards here, where I talked about the North Node in Taurus that we are coming out of and the South Node in Scorpio. And I did it through the houses and talk about like, what are you learning? Because the nodes are like a collective dump of like, we all got to get our stuff together. When the nodes shift, so first, let's back up. Your north node is your north node. No matter, right? And I have a whole playlist. So if you don't know your north node sign or you're confused, it's north nodes. It's nodes through the houses. I have, north node in Pisces, south node in Virgo, like videos about what does that mean? What does your north node and south node pairing mean? That's not really what this video is about. It's more about the collective transit that we're all about to go through. So just wanted to put that out there. So the point that I'm making is that we want to pay attention to these even if they're not our north node. Now, those of us who are north node in Taurus, we should have learned something during this, especially us, during this transit, because our north node returned to the sign that it's in. And so we were likely learning some lessons around value and self-value and self-preservation and how to simplify things in our lives and like how to earn, how to let go of some of the power struggles we likely sometimes have. And everyone could have learned that during this transit, but especially for those of us who have our North Node in Taurus. So you might ask, like, wait, why is it going back? So it's not going direct. You'd be like, well, why isn't the North Node going into Gemini? Because the North Node goes backwards, right? And so it's now going into Aries. And that means the South Node's in Libra. So what does this mean for a lot of us? And what does this mean for us in society? Because, at first glance, North Node Aries is about self-interest. It is about self-interest in a different way to Taurus. Taurus is trying to build to something. It is trying to find value in what it earns and what it obtains. Aries is self-interest in terms of action, in terms of will, in terms of power. And we are in a very interesting social climate where we often feel like people are only acting in self-interest, right? And not looking at the different perspectives of people, the different experiences of others. But there is something more meaningful in this. You have to look at where the North Node is going to be traveling in your chart, because that's going to show you a lot of insight into where in your life do you need to take more control? Where in your life do you need to be a little bit more bold? Where in your life have you been relying a little too much on somebody else, right? So it's really important to not just look at it as like, oh no, Aries, right? Especially if you don't have Aries energy in your chart and it is kind of unfamiliar to you. But really what we want to look at here, and I want to break it down very in a simple way, is that the South Node being in Libra, okay? Though Libra energy can have a lot of benefits in terms of partnership and being dependent on other people to get something or to communicate or to collaborate. And that energy is not going to leave, right? Like, you still need to collaborate. You still need to gain other people's perspectives. Astrology is not this cut off, this energy. It's not cutting something off. But what astrology does want us to do is to focus on other areas in our lives, right? And so based on wherever Aries is going in your chart, it's going to be important for you to understand, like, where have I been avoiding challenge? Where have I been avoiding taking action? Where have I been avoiding, like, really commanding this area? And maybe a little further down, I'll actually go through all of the houses, the South Node, the North Node, but let's talk. So if your North Node in Aries, if the North Node in Aries is going to be moved to your first house, oh wow, you really got to take action. You have to understand who you are and what you're trying to represent. This is the time to really be really self-involved. This is the time to not shy away from, being your authentic self. And there's really going to be time for you to take a little bit more action in terms of asserting, who are you? What do you want to do? If you're someone, like, people keep asking you, what do you want to do with your life? This is the time to do it. And your identity is contingent on you taking some type of action, learning how to really start to take a little bit more, responsibility, but also a little bit more, taking more effort to really understand what you're trying to show. What are you trying to show the world about yourself? The second house, Aries. If Aries North Node is moving through your second house, well, this is time to be a little bit more focused on how you are going to make bolder moves in terms of your finances. And bold doesn't have to mean you're going to go buy a yacht. Bold can mean you have not really been investing your money the way you want to. And now you're like, you know what? I have this really great project idea and I really want to do this and I have the money to do it. Let me just take a risk and do it. Let me actually pour into what I want to do. You've been working for someone else your whole life. And maybe you're like that Aries energy, like, I want to try this thing I think can work and then I can get off the ground. Again, I don't give financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. So I can't tell you exactly how to move your money. But with the second house, remember, it's about values. It's about what you've earned. It is about what you possess. And if Aries North Node is moving into that, it's not about becoming an Aries. It's not even a planet. The North Node is like, where's the opportunity now for you to learn this lesson, for you to learn a little bit more about how you can be bolder and take more ownership over the way in which you handle your money, how you handle your finances. Maybe your partner handles all the finances, and now it's time for you to start doing some things on your own. Okay, if the North Node Aries is moving through your third house, this is a great time if you have a spark to learn something. This is a great time, and it might feel a little unplanned, right? It's unplanned. It's like, you're taking a class or you're doing something you didn't think you would be doing. Or you're doing something in a way, like even North Node being in Aries, it's like it's taking a chance on something that can allow you to become a little bit more connected to what you're familiar with. The third houses are it's familiar, it is. That's why it represents like early schooling, early childhood. We're still in our neighborhoods. The third house is siblings and cousins and things like that. The third house is where we are, right? It's our locality in a way. And so when you have the North Node going there, it's like, what are you doing to impact that area of your life? How are you in some way finding opportunities to feel a little bit more aligned with where you come from, where you are finding more alignment in terms of, going back to an idea that you had, going back to something you learned, and now doing something with it. The person who got a bachelor's degree and didn't do anything with it, and now it's like, oh, I might actually be able to use this. Somebody just told me about an opportunity, right? So that Aries energy is igniting your mind. That North Node is about the lesson that you need to learn about what it is that you're approaching. A lot of times we move away from things, or we go away from things that are too familiar because we're trying to enjoy the world and experience things, which is why the third house is opposing the ninth house of experience and journeys, etc. But the third house is equally important because it sometimes can ground us into things that we ignore, right? Because it's our early life, it's our early foundation. And the further we get from it, we don't understand that sometimes that foundation is just helping us understand another part of ourselves. So if the North Node is moving there, it's a spark, it's a jolt to your mindset, to your learning, to something that can help you get more connected back to where you are from, or things that were from your early life. If your Aries North Node is moving in your fourth house, for some people, this is about like really making bolder decisions in terms of your family and your emotions. Maybe you've been, contemplating moving back near your family for a couple years, and then you finally do it. Or maybe you are learning to be independent from your family. Again, people's individual transits will tell us the full story. You're taking a more direct position in terms of something that matters to you. You're taking more of a bold position in terms of something and people that rely on you in some way, shape, or form. You have to take a stance. You're doing something. There's an action to be done in terms of your fourth house sector. There is something you have to do. You have to be bold. You have to be independent. Even if it's you're making decisions for your family, and maybe you're the one that needs to do it. Nobody else is doing it. So you're like, you know what? You might say something like, it depends on the rest of the chart. Like, so if someone in your family passed away a long time ago, nobody lives in the house, nobody's taking care of the house, we're selling this house, right? Like, and that's just an example, but it's like, and that can cause tension. Aries energy is very much like, this is how we're doing it. This is what's going to happen, but it might need to happen, right? And again, that's an example, but I'm just saying that's the energy of the North Node. It's a lesson, right? You're not becoming an Aries person or anything like that. It is the lesson that you're learning. It is a kind of experience that you need to have in order for you to really balance things out, because that means that the fourth house, you haven't been taking care of home, or you have not been as influential in the decisions of the home, or you have not been really taking care and being bold and action-oriented in terms of your relationships with people in your family, or, right? You've been, maybe being, running away, right? Because the South Node's in Libra in terms of this transit. which is more so running is a saying like, okay, you've been doing that, you've been working on your career maybe, but now it's time to work on this home stuff. If the North Node is moving in Aries, obviously it's moving in Aries to the 5th house. The 5th house is going to, it's fun, it's pleasure, it's all those great things that are lighthearted for us. So if the North Node is moving there in Aries, it can also be lessons in terms of learning what's fun and not just staying locked into things that you thought you knew or things that you wanted to do. You've been doing a lot for other people. You've been hanging out with a lot of other people. You realize that like your interests aren't the same anymore. You've been doing the same hobbies since you were in high school or college or 10 years ago, whatever your situation is. And you haven't been, you're like, wait, but I like these other things, right? Aries in the 5th house, now you have to learn what you like. You have to learn what brings you happiness. You sometimes have to break away from, you might have to break away. It doesn't mean in friendships and things like that are good, but it means you have to break away in some way and really define what fun and entertainment is for you. And now the Aries traveling, there's a lot of energy, a lot of lessons to learn about what do you actually like? What are you actually good at? What is really going to ignite you, right? So it does require you to kind of, the 11th house, which the South Node would be in, is the 11th house is this house that deals a lot, of course, with our social belonging, who we go to, the meeting of the minds type of energy, our networks. But the 5th house is us. It's what we like. It's what we enjoy. It's what we're having fun doing. It's what we're having fun, right? And sometimes people could be in the 5th house. People who have placements there, if your transit's going through there, etc. We know that children can be associated with the 5th house with people who have children or work with children, etc. Things like that. We know people could also be there in terms of, again, 5th house is fun. Dating, right? So each house has things that are in it where it kind of feel like not, right? Like, what does this have to do with the other? But the 5th house is, it's fun, right? Okay. And so, situations, activities, events, things that make us feel like we are having fun. So you might have to rediscover something about yourself that you enjoy. And it's okay if you need to go at it alone. Stop saying, I need my friends to be with me. I need a partner with me. Find things that you enjoy on your own, that you're good at, and that give you a lot of like energy and passion. The North Node, Aries, moving into your 6th house. It's time to get some work done. Have you been ignoring something? Have you been putting something off? Now you might have the energy to do it, especially if that North Node isn't making any trines or conjuncts or something like that in your chart. Now's the time to do it. It's time to get things going. And especially I'm talking about like if the conjunct is like you have a natal placement in the 6th house. Well, then it's going to be, conjunct in that North Node at some point. Time to get moving. It's time to get moving. You have the energy to do it. You're learning lessons around maybe how to be a little bit more forthcoming, how to be a little bit more courageous in the things that you do. The 6th house can be associated with work and service, but at the same time, you might have to work on yourself, and when you have 6th house energy, sometimes it's so easy to get caught up in the service-oriented nature of it, being a worker, being hardworking, being dependable. But Aries energy, again, it wants to teach us what we've been neglecting about what we need, what we've been neglecting about our power, right? And so the North Node moving here can mean, how do you also do the same projects you do at work, or how do you put that same energy that you put into tasks into yourself? For some people, this could have a health component to it as well. In terms of taking ownership over your health, being really bold, being very energetic, being very active, physical activity. When I see, Aries, we know can be the body. Aries can be competitive sports. You can see that sometimes with Leo energy as well. But with the 6th house, it is about health as well as the other things that I mentioned. So think about those themes and how they could come out during that transit. If the North Node is moving into the 7th house, well, we know what makes this interesting is that opposition, because the 7th house is Venus, Libra in astrology. But with North Node and Aries here, it might mean that you have been putting your own needs in a partnership to the side. Now, again, the North Node is not what you're becoming. You're not like, I'm now in Aries. No, but you're utilizing that energy to learn those lessons about how do I put myself in a relationship first, or how do I learn how to be myself and still be in a partnership. Some people get lost in relationships, in marriage, and forget who they are and forget what they're good at and forget, their identity. So there could be some identity types of experiences here where you're learning this lesson. You have to build up the ways in which you are independent of your partner. You might even go through a situation where you have to be independent of them somehow. They always did this for you. Now they can't do it anymore, right? But you're learning that lesson and that value of that balance. if the North Node in Aries is transiting through your 8th house, we know the 8th house is all that deep, intense, emotional energy. That can transform us, and it also can destroy us depending on how we choose to deal with it, right? So the North Node of Aries moving through the 8th house, it's important to really identify how you have been, not as, and Aries can have a special relation with the 8th house. So even though Scorpio and Aries are quincunx signs, they're both ruled by Mars, right? Scorpio by Pluto as well, but they're both ruled by Mars. So when Aries gets here, it's not necessarily a bad thing. But what Aries energy, the North Node, wants you to do is for you to have a little bit more power. You have to take something and stop thinking it's under the surface and stop, making things all complex. The Aries energy here is like, okay, we've been working on this for a while. We've been doing the same dance for a while with how we feel about something under the surface. That North Node from Aries is now saying, okay, now what are we going to do with all that energy? For some people, it can be quite an emotional outpour because no longer is it about holding things in or under the surface. The North Node wants us to learn a lesson. It wants us to aspire to, okay, yeah, you've unpacked your trauma. Yeah, you've unpacked the problem. Yes, you know what the issue is. Or yes, you are understanding something in your life that you have been, not as direct about, or you've been hiding it under the surface, or you've been letting it overpower you. Now we got to do something. Aries energy is like, now all that stuff, what are we doing now so that we are actually moving? We're doing something. Scorpio holds on. Aries moves on. Right? Hold on, move on. And so how do you start to reconcile that? If the North Node in Aries is transiting your 9th house, this brings about like you might have to be, and again, whether it's a mental exploration or a physical exploration, because the 9th house can be foreign travel. But I also notice in some charts, some people are not traveling all over the world, but they have 9th house placements. The 9th house can also be your mental exploration. It can be how you are, your belief systems. It is getting in alignment. It is knowledge seeking. It is those different things. So there's different ways to experience, okay? And when the North Node in Aries travels here, though, it is going to want you to be a little bit bolder in your experiences. Take different risks, take different chances. Put yourself in a state where you're not afraid to do certain things, where you are more in alignment with, okay, I'm going to now move in a direction that is going to really help me experience something that is going to require me to do this alone or do this on my own, or I'm going to be very self-motivated to do something that is outside of my comfort zone, but I'm not afraid of it, right? So how do you learn to reconcile those lessons? Because then that means the 3rd house would be in the South Node in Libra would be in the 3rd house. I just talked about the 3rd house as locality. It's familiar to us. It's also where if we think of the mind, our minds are, right, like familiar to us. Like even when we're learning something new, what are we doing? We're memorizing it, or we are trying to understand it. Why do we understand things? So that way we can feel comfortable with the information we have, so that we know what to expect. 3rd house is way more about what to expect, what to communicate, the people around us that we know. We know all houses have multiple layers. So sometimes I'll toss out a lot of themes, but you'll see that they're all connected when we talk about the houses, right? Specific houses and what lives in there. So that's why I'm trying to make the connection between the difference between the 3rd and the 9th and what you need to do. If the North Node in Aries transits to your 10th house, well, this could be a time where you're breaking free from something, especially if you have any Uranus energy, right? In your chart, if you're in Aquarius or Aquarius rising, or you have, some type of Uranus energy that's, influential in your chart. And here, if North Node in Aries is moving to your 10th house, you're going to maybe either be acknowledged, be seen for your individual efforts. You're going to want to be known or seen for your more individual efforts. This could also be a time where you feel a little bit more, that's why I said breaking free. Some people it's going to be, I need to be seen. If you haven't felt seen, if you haven't felt recognized, this is going to be an opportunity for you, but it's a lesson. And what I tell people about lessons is you're not going to, it's a transit, okay? So it doesn't mean like the day the North Node goes in Aries, you're recognized for something, right? It means that you're here there's going to be experiences that likely happen, or that you have the opportunity to engage with, that are going to force you to be a little bit more bold, courageous, direct in terms of your career and your goals. You might feel like, I can't take it anymore. I can't keep doing the same thing I've been doing. I've wanted to do this my whole life. That's the difference between the 10th house and some other houses. People sometimes get it confused. Like the 1st and the 10th, they're both about some level of assertion. Well, no, the 1st house is asserting its identity itself. It can be very direct. The 10th house is I'm direct, or I am forthcoming, but it's about my goals and it's about the things I want the world to see about me. The first house is what I want people to see about who I am. If the North Node in Aries is transiting to your 11th house, these are themes here around your groups. These are themes here around your networks. These are themes here about even experiences where you might feel like you have to find something of passion, find something that you can belong to, that you're actually passionate about. It could be as simple as some people you've been having the same friend group for a long time, or the same people you connect with, but really they're not into the same thing as you, right? So the difference was, I talked, the 5th house is finding what you like, but the North Node moving 11th house is finding a group of people that have the same the same burst of energy, the same passion, the same interest, right? Even with the North Node being in Aries, it could also be situations where people are being independent. They're breaking off and making their own group. They're making their own organization. Wouldn't be surprised if there are some people that have the North Node transiting that 11th house. They create something during this time that benefits a group of people. They spark something. They create a community of some sorts. Okay. The North Node in the 12th house. If the North Node in Aries is transiting your 12th house, this is going to be a time where you might feel a need to really center yourself in terms of your spiritual direction. Maybe you've been told a lot of things spiritually, maybe you've been following a lot of things spiritually, and now you're at a place where you want to put it into perspective for yourself. And so this could be a time where you are trying different things, where you're not quite sure. Remember, Aries energy can be a little restless. Like, you're not quite sure yet what you want to commit yourself to in terms of your spiritual development, in terms of your, understanding the things that you need to understand about your own projection, your spiritual journey. So this is a great opportunity for you to understand more about your own beliefs, your own spiritual direction. This could be a time where you feel more courageous. Maybe you feel more confident about what your direction is. You feel like, I'm going to do something now. Remember, Aries energy, I'm doing, I'm acting, I'm learning the lesson of how. It's okay during this transit to learn how to do something, how to have courage, how to build it up. Even if you feel pressured to show that Aries energy or apply it to a certain area of your life. And so to understand more how important it is for you to dive in and start to do the work, the inner work, right? So Aries and inner work can sometimes feel like, whoa, that's a contradiction. But if any Aries energies move to your 12th house, it is important to self-identify what it is that is meaningful to you. You're finding out what means a lot to you. And you're doing it in a space where you're allowing yourself to give more energy to those things that sometimes aren't as paid attention to. So if you feel like you're in a space where like, I got to do something in alignment with myself, with my higher self, especially those who are highly spiritual, that is going to be a way in which you can use your North Node in Aries energy, right? To use it in a way that is going to provide the opportunity for you to be courageous. And sometimes it's even, for people who are highly compassionate, people who have a lot of connections to others, your actions help benefit other people. Right? Because we have to understand, again, though the 12th house has all these negative things associated, it's also the house of compassion and universalism. Beyond us being the same or looking the same or coming from the same place or whatever, right? And the people that people want to partner with, the 12th house is about the collective consciousness, us all as spiritual beings. What are we here to do? What are we here to experience? And so if Aries is there, it also might mean that you're charged to do that during this time. You're learning how you can have an impact, or how you can be courageous and direct in terms of things that require us to lead with compassion and lead in situations that allow for our spiritual gifts to come through. So that was it for this video. Did a lot of this off the top of my head, all of it from the top of my head. So that's it. If you have any thoughts, any, hopes for yourself during this North Node, any connections, please feel free to drop a comment.